So I want to share with you our experience in reusing two legacy lexical resources for Italian. This is work started some years ago in 2020 during the pandemic, and then still we feel that it's not going on. Okay, still actual. So the motivation that behind this work is first of all that in the language technology field, it seems that we are going kind of back, so moving again from more data to better data. So the large language models have been trained on enormous amounts of raw data, but now we need to still control, explain, and highly curate the results. So we think that reusing and making efforts in producing high quality human curated data is still very valuable. This work, however, was motivated by a project started some years ago, and it was the Elexis project, within which one of the main tasks was training and testing, evaluating word sense disambiguation. So we had to produce a word sense annotated data set parallel for 10 languages of European languages. And for this, originally the idea was to use lexicographic data, so dictionaries, deriving sense inventories for these lexicographic resources for annotating the corpus. But Italian still has no broad coverage open machine readable dictionary available. So we could resort to no such resource. But we have in our institute and in Italy two computational lexicons or lexical databases that are very close to lexicographic resources because they were built and curated totally by humans. And these are the Parole Simple Clips Lexicon and ItalWordNet. They are quite heterogeneous resources, although there is some overlap between the two. So we decided to make this experiment and effort to use them and merge the senses from them to produce a sense inventory for the annotation. And the annotation was done within that project according to the guidelines and requirements of that project on a set of about 2,000 sentences parallel for 10 languages. We curated only the Italian subset, of course. So one of the outcomes of these efforts, so the first effort is reusing the two lexical databases to produce a sense inventory. And this is already an interesting exercise because, as one of the speakers said before, their users are kind of long-term curators. So we could already spot some mistakes or problems in the original resources, missing definitions, different sense granularity, and these kind of issues, which we did not solve within this project, but are, let's say, kept in a kind of log, so which could or may lead to an improvement of the original resources. Also, we revealed some important gaps, for instance, and especially for multi-word expressions that are very inconsistently and represented in these resources, also numerically. So then the workflow, once we have derived the sense inventory from these two resources, then we used it to annotate this corpus of 2,000 sentences. And of course, the coverage was not perfect, so some lemmas were not covered by our resources. In the project, BubbleNet was used as a fallback solution where the sense inventory did not provide senses. But in case the human annotators, so annotation was done by two annotators plus a judge, in case they didn't find any sense suitable even in BubbleNet, these annotators became sort of lexicographers and were able to suggest to create new senses. So again, this is a potential enrichment and improvement of the original databases. The output format is CONOL-U annotated. For multi-word expressions, we sort of followed the ParsMe guidelines and annotation format. And so the newly produced resources is now also reusable and interoperable because it follows shared standards and formats. So again, this is the kind of two resources that were obtained through this reuse and application to a downstream task. A newly also emerged sense inventory enriched with new senses and corrected for missing information, and an annotated subcorpus. The sense inventory is deposited in the ILC for CLARIN repository, while the annotated subcorpus is part of the whole ELEXIS parallel corpus deposited in the Slovene data center. So what did we learn from this exercise? Many maybe obvious things that are not so obvious because problems still exist after more than 20 years of efforts in standardization and interoperability. So one of the key issues is the licenses, because in these exercises, we were able to force a little bit the license because we are the right owners of the resources. But licensing is an important issue that needs to be well attended for. And as somebody said before, we need perhaps more training at even lower university level on these issues about best practices for how to create and publish and license data sets for further use. Documentation is also important because some question arose whether users which were not familiar with these two resources, already familiar with these two resources, would be really able to easily access and use the information inside it. And so the importance of formats and documentation is important. And then the other very important thing is human expertise. Exactly. For using the data, expertise is needed, even if there is a high documentation standardization. And then what we learned, as it was said, exactly that reusing is a creative act that can lead to improvement and correction of the original resources.